Hey everyone, Jerry here. This year I decided to do something different with the 10 best and worst movies of the year because why the hell not? And so here is my list as a video collage review entertainment thing. And keep in mind that these movies are restricted basically to the things I watch, so there will be things that won't be on it that I'm sure were really bad, like the Blood Rain 3 and Vampires Suck and stuff like that. So if you take me to task for not having the newest Uwe Boll movie on here, just keep that in mind. And without further ado, here are the 10 worst movies of 2010. Number 10, Percy Jackson. What a terrible way to kick off the year. The movie takes a charming kid's book that actually did its research and turns it into one of the most boring films of the year. The actors don't care about what's going on, the action is boring, the effects are laughable, and the similarity to the books is superficial at best. I guess there's something to be said for a movie that takes things as exciting as the Greek gods and monsters and manages to make them bland. But that same energy could have been put into making a movie that was actually good. Number 9. Cop Out. Kevin Smith is a plague upon cinema. With every movie the man makes, he proves that he was nothing more than a hack who had the right idea at the right time. An idea that's also been handled with more skill than he ever had ever since nerd culture became mainstream. And if Clerks 2 and Jersey Girl were what it took to realize that the Emperor has no clothes, then Cop Out is what should drive him out of Hollywood forever. The man further cements my hatred by going to the most tired of comedies, the racially diverse buddy cop movie, along with all the racism you've grown to loathe over the years from the absolutely intolerable Tracy Morgan. For those keeping score, Smith is also currently writing the terrible, terrible Green Hornet comic, and also wrote Batman the Widening Gyre this year, also known as the worst comic I have ever read. And if you think I'm being melodramatic, you haven't seen this movie or read the damn comic. Number 8. Devil. This movie is an Outer Limits episode stretched too thin at best. Everything about this movie fails on the basic level. The premise alone is laughable, and everything this movie does turns out to be a fucking joke from there on. Why would the devil even bother to go after these small potato losers anyways? I'll give the movie that it had me laughing more than a lot of movies out this year, but considering this was supposed to be a serious horror movie, you can't call that a compliment. Number 7. Robin Hood. Robin Hood is a movie that takes a dashing, swashbuckling adventure and turns it into a history lesson on the Magna Carta. It's about as interesting as it sounds, and it sounds like this. I don't understand this fascination with taking a folk hero and integrating that with actual history. It's like doing a remake of Pirates of the Caribbean and making the focus be trade routes. The hilariously anachronistic BBC Robin Hood series tried to do the same here and had the same results. If you want your Robin Hood, stick with Errol Flynn. That's fun. Number 6. The A-Team. The A-Team was a stupid TV show and time has not sweetened it. I guess it was popular back in the day because of Mr. T and because there were explosions in it, but there hasn't been exactly a dearth of loud, stupid action movies these days, making the whole exercise pointless in my eyes. People who know me know that I'm hardly a stickler for realism in my films, but the laws of physics in this movie are so tenuous that Bugs Bunny would be enraged by this film's fancy. My biggest fear is that this becomes a thing, and we can be subjected to revivals of shitty TV shows for adults instead of just preying on the nostalgia of 20-somethings. Number 5. The Expendables. Like you didn't know this was going to be on here. The movie tries to skate by simply having an impressive cast of former action stars, the best of which, Jet Li, is completely shafted. The one criteria I give for an action film to get a barely passing grade is for the action scenes to at least be engaging. And for a film which sets up stupid action as the crux of the film, I absolutely demand it. Not one action scene gets me to care about these dipshits. The movie is a good reminder of why we don't make action movies like we used to. Because they sucked. Number 4. Paranormal Activity 2. Paranormal Activity was a surprisingly good horror movie disguised as a Blair Witch Project ripoff. Paranormal Activity 2 is pretty much every cliche about bad horror movie sequels out there. One of the key elements to a good sequel is to change the game. Instead, we find ourselves bored to death because we're retreading ground from the first movie. This movie thinks it can make lightning strike twice by doing the same thing over again, absolutely forgetting the former's pacing, shock, and characters with more charisma than a moldy carrot. Number 3. A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake. This film codifies everything I hate about remakes. Say what you will about the awful Halloween remakes by Rob Zombie, but at least they failed in an interesting way. Nightmare is plotted out like it's made by people who heard of the series secondhand, from someone who can't stand it. It takes one of the most recognizable villains of the last 3 decades and turns him into a generic snarling killer. This film also manages to somehow not take advantage of the dream element that could potentially lead to some of the most creative horror sequences out there. And gore? Don't make me laugh. As ridiculous as the slasher franchise got near its end, the worst thing something that's supposed to be scary can do is stagnate. And that's exactly what this movie does. Number 2. The Last Airbender. Yeah, I know it's cool to hate on M. Night Shyamalan these days, but it's not like the man doesn't deserve every bit of bile shot at him lately. I have to wonder who is clamoring for this movie. Fans of the animated series are so disproportionately reverential of it that making a film adaptation began an instantaneous witch hunt for those responsible. Shockingly, their hate is actually a completely reasonable response. Every line in this movie is packed with awkward exposition that sounds like it's come out of a Gurren Lagann fanfiction. The effects are eye-searingly painful, and the action is utterly boring. Take a good look, fans of Avatar. This is how a franchise ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper. And the number 1 worst movie of the year is Skyline. This, Cameron's Avatar, and District 9 have convinced me that for a while we'll get a flashy-looking generic sci-fi action movie that people will then pepper as having lots of new ideas. But whereas District 9 was actually pretty good and Avatar was at least enjoyable, Skyline has nothing redeeming about it. The alien invasion film is one of the least interesting sci-fi subgenres, so unless you have something new to add, bothering in the first place is dubious. Not only does this movie have nothing to add to the tired subgenre, but it handles its material like you'd expect from a kid with a new camera. I'm amazed this movie even got passed through, because it has a place beside the Beast of Yucca Flats and Plan 9 from Outer Space and its shittiness. I guess I can recommend a single viewing based on that level alone. But man. And those were my 10 worst movies of the year. Thanks for watching, and join me in a bit when I start talking about the 10 best movies in the year. Mostly because so many people say that I don't like anything.